welcome back to Living with a Classic. We're here with my daily driver, my 1975 XJ6. In the previous video, we did a lot of things because sadly, I haven't been dailying this thing for about 6 months or so because of some issues. So we fixed an exhaust leak and a couple other small things in the previous video. Between then and now, I've actually done just a couple boring jobs. I looked over the brakes and things, but I'll show you guys that. I've also done a little bit of painting actually, which wasn't really planned, but it's all part of the rust proofing and I'm pretty happy with it. Speaking of using this thing daily, for those of you who don't really remember when I got this, maybe you weren't subscribed or you don't remember because it's a long time ago, about 4 years ago. This was the first project car on the channel. Some people think that I'm sort of ruining it by using it a lot, and everything looks different in real life than on camera. This thing is pretty worn. Mechanically, it's good. I mean, it has a new engine with like less than 4,000 miles on it now, all rebuilt, and everything else is really good. However, when I got this car, it was really cheap, like around $1,000 with a bad engine and a bad interior. It was pretty solid, but it's been painted in many different ways, and yes, there's no real rust, but the paint is not excellent on it, and so really it was a bit of a parts car. So I've actually just, in my opinion, given this life and I'm enjoying it. My kids are loving it and I'm using it, and yes, of course things will happen to it. It will rust. I do rust proof it and I try to avoid salt as much as possible, but I do use it year round, and when it does rust, well, I'm gonna keep on top of it and I'm gonna fix it. We'll weld it. It's not the end of the deal because it was destined just probably to be a parts car, and now it's gonna live on. I want to keep this thing for as long as possible, probably forever if I really can, by just keeping on the road. But I just want to let you guys know that this is not a show car. That's not the point. I have other cars which are that. I have garage queens, all of that. It's not the point of this car. So a little rant over. Let me show you what's been going on. I've actually found a tiny bit of rust. It's nothing structural. It's in an inner wing, and I think for 3 winters, that's not bad. I punched a hole the size of, less than a thumbnail. Really tiny and nothing structural. So I've rust proofed that like crazy now, and then I will weld that up in the spring. But yeah, I think this thing has held up really well. But let me show you what's been going on. I've also drained one of the fuel tanks and a couple of things, and then we're going to start this thing up, have it warm up a little bit, and that will help me warm up the workshop as well. Yeah, sorry about the slight rant, but sometimes you just gotta prepare for that. So this is what I found. There is a seam here, and there was a little bit of rust in the seam, and I was able to knock through that tiny hole right there and right there. But anything below that, there's still red primer and everything. So I hit that with some red oxide, and we're gonna put some of this underseal stuff on there, and that should be good to go. And then when I start driving something else in the spring, we'll make a little patch here. That won't really be the end of the world. After 3 winters, that's what I find. Yeah, I'd say that's not bad at all. Other than that, I've looked over the brakes and the other side. I took it apart and lubed it up a little bit. Probably the same thing on here. It's just from sitting, and put that back together. I have done a bit of painting. There's one thing which has been an issue all this time, and it's really just been this door, but then actually all the doors, is the seam up here. The paint has peeled a bit and it was starting to get some surface rust. So I sanded that down and I brush painted the underside with some green paint. And it's not regular vehicle paint. I used Combi Color, which comes in a dark green like this. And then I mixed it with a little bit of extra black to get the right color. And here I do need to, probably wet sand that a little bit and polish it. But let me show you from this side. Like I said, this is a daily. I just want to save it. I just don't want it to rust. And that's what we've done. So if you have a look here, yes, it may not be the most beautiful job, but there was surface rust on that seam, and that's all gone now. And that to all the doors, and yeah, pretty happy with the way that turned out actually. So I'm going to peel that tape off, But let me show you the fuel. I drained that into a clear container so we can have a look at it. So this is all that was left in the tank. Sorry about this. There we go, the light. And I'd say that's not too much dirt, actually. That's pretty good. You can see a little bit of water sitting around the corners. So yeah, you can see it moving right there. That's water. So yeah, definitely a good thing that we drained that. I'm only using one tank. The other one has been leaking since I got the car. I have bought a spare tank for it, but I don't have time to fit that right now. That should be a spring project because I know when I remove that, I want to do some rust proofing stuff in there, and that will be a bigger project. But let's put some fresh fuel in it and fire it up. I've put in some fresh fuel. I also added this, which is a water remover, also a de-icer, you know, for carbureted vehicles in the winter. I usually run this in the winter so the carbs don't ice up. This is something I put in as a recommendation from my good friend Dan, the painter. It's a Swedish thing called Tree Pack, and it's like everything in one. He says he uses it a lot. He has a lot of motorcycles, and they sit over the winter, you know, with lots of carbs. He says they run terrible on the fuel when you start them up, but then you put this in, and after a couple miles they run well. So it is a octane booster. It also cleans, it lubricates, it is a lead replacement if you want to, and a lot of other things. So I put in a healthy dose of that, and I think I'm going to put in a little bit more, overdose it later when I add more fuel. But let's fire it up and see how it runs now. Okay, so we're connected here. I just want to make sure which curve I have on it. And I think this is the one I like to use. Yep. So I think, since this is right on all the other ones, I think this one's written to it, which proves the point that even with being removed from the car for 6 months, this thing still remembers its curve, which is really cool. All right, but let's see if this thing fires up. Should still be, you know, the old fuel on the carbs, but we can see we have a fuel gauge moved a little bit and everything. So let's give it a shot. Not starting was my fault. I had moved the ignition sequence over one step. So opened up, saw that it wasn't actually pointing at the right one. But it's running now. It got quite flooded then, and it's running on the AD. Starting to get some warmth through there. We are starting to see, we're at 1100 RPMs. Not hearing any leaks over here. So that is the exhaust paste plus heat shield is going to smoke a little bit with that fresh paint. We have, I disconnected the tach, but we do have good oil pressure, even with the thin oil. So that's really good. I really just want to run it, get all of this fresh fuel in it, and get the oil circulator for about half an hour or so. Like I said, we're just flushing it with this, get that out, also get the exhaust to start going. And also see it might need a little bit of a tune. I don't remember what I did because it wasn't running right, and I might have mixed with the carbs and things. I actually really don't remember. But I'm letting it run here, and the nice thing is, once it's all warmed up, my work truck will get pretty warmed up as well, because having an 80 to 90 degree engine, that will radiate some good heat in here. But I'll let it warm up, see if the AED turns off, and see how it does. I'll double check the timing with what I see here, and it's pretty much exactly the same. Mine showed 10, that showed 9. It's starting to smooth out. I think it is actually that there was water in the carbs. Probably could do with taking them apart, but I don't have any spare gaskets for the top. But the stuff I poured in, it really should help and break up anything and make sure this goes in and gets burnt. That's really what it should do. So it is running better and better. 80 is pretty much turning off right now, and that's what you're hearing. Nice and warm here. Then we're down to 750, 800 RPM idle. Charging very nicely. And let's see. Temperatures at the end. We're almost there, so we're starting to get a little bit of temp. It was running just better and better. I really just think this thing needs to be driven now. Carbs seem to be pretty good too, and I checked they're still balanced, and mixture seemed pretty good. 80 turned off. We'll see what that thing is like when it's cold, if it needs a tiny adjustment or not. Otherwise, exhaust seems to be pretty free of leaks. Maybe something small in the back, but I'll check that out a little bit later. But now when it's all nice and warm, I have a nice heat source here in the workshop, and we can take that oil out, which I just meant, like I said, to have in there a very short time while just sort of flush everything out a bit. So, oh, all right, wrong wrench. Let me get the correct one and we'll drain this. It should be a lot thinner now. It is nice and warm. I ran it for about half an hour. Let me get that washer. And there we go. Still comes out nice and black, so at least it's done its job cleaning everything out a bit. Let that drain, and in the meantime I can go and do some other things. Judging by the cobwebs, you can tell this car hasn't been on the road for a while. It's been about 6 months. The other side, the brakes went in pretty well. I just want to see how they are on this side. Stuck a little bit, everything, so I think we'll take it apart. Pads are still good, but we'll take out, clean everything out, and let's lubricate it a little bit if we can, just to make sure that we don't have any brake issues. There we go. See a little bit of surface rust on these. Normally not an issue when you use a car, but this thing's been sitting, and it was sitting outside, and we had extremely wet summer. It rained pretty much every day the second half of summer. So yeah, and I didn't have enough space to put inside, unfortunately, because a lot of customer projects and things going on. But yeah. Just get this out of here. Yeah, they're a little stuck. Let me work at this for a minute. We'll get these out, then we'll try and push all the pistons in. Hopefully all 4 of them move. And there we go. A little stuck in there. But most likely these would have been fine if I just drove on them, but we'll check anyways. I haven't rebuilt these. They're definitely been rebuilt at some point. You have new hoses and everything like that on them. But let's see what they're like. Yeah, that pushes in nicely. What is that? Okay, all the way in. Sorry, the camera's a bit in the way. Can we do that? Let's do this side first. Yeah, I gotta move you guys. You're a little bit in the way. Let's give this another shot. Okay, that one went in all the way. These are a little bit stuck. Hopefully I can get it working. I don't want to rebuild these right now. Some point in the future, yes. But not right now. There we go. and almost. What you can do otherwise to get them unstuck, if you're just a little bit stuck like this, especially with multi-pot, is we'll put the brake pad in on the other side, and then I'll push the brake pedal a couple times. This will make it go out just a little bit, and that will sort of break seal or whatever's going on. That one's in. Let's just see if this one's left. Come on. There we go. So they all went in. And you see, when I pushed that one in, that one went out. So, I'd say these are fairly alright for now. We're going to clean up the main surfaces here with a screwdriver and then a wire brush. Put it all back together. And should be good to go. All back together, and it's free now. I did push the pistons out once with the brake pedal and push them in again, and it went in very nice and smoothly. So that should be no issues at all. And I gave everything just a good grease around here. So ready to get this thing on the ground in the front and put on my studded winter tires. And then the rear, I'm just gonna have a quick look over. I think the brakes are probably fine, but just a quick look over when I put the rear, swap out the rear tires, fill it up with some fresh oil, put that filter back on, and we're really close to driving out of the workshop again. All right, so next day, I have some good news. The car's ready to actually head outside. Winter tires are on. Had a look at the rear brakes. They were all really good. And now I remember that about 10,000 kilometers ago, I put in new rear pads. So really good. And the other good news is I have heat again. This is what I had to replace. They were unable to get a service guy out to me. But I told them that, well, how hard can it be? So they sent me a service manual, and I signed a thing where if I follow the manual, it's not going to void the warranty and things. And they sent me the parts. I replaced these two circuit boards. Now it works. Nice and warm in here. So that's, we're starting to get, last night was about 15 degrees below freezing outside. Now it's maybe about 8 below freezing. So it takes a while to warm up this place, but we're getting there. It's twice as warm as it was yesterday, so that's really good. Other than that, we have fresh oil in it. We can cross things off the list. Oil change. That is done. Swap tires. Yes. Look over brakes. I've done that. And fuel system flush. Forgot to say I did replace the filter in the back as well when I did that. So that's a fresh fuel filter, fresh fuel, some additives and things. I've checked the coolant, replaced some hose clamps, done a lot of small things, and greased everything all around. So she should be ready to go outside. And if we're lucky, the sun just comes out every now and then, so we'll go have a nice drive in the sun, hopefully. Alright, just pulled around the barn here. I don't have that much fuel in it. We just put in the 10 liters. And we're just going to do a quick drive here. I really just want to feel this thing back out on the roads, first time in 6 months. And just see how things go. And then I'll go another car later and pick up some more fuel because I have quite a ways to go to a gas station. So I want to have more than it just reading empty, because it completely emptied the tank, and I don't actually know how far down it sucks fuel. But we're out here, snow's out, and I need to really clean my windshield. I can't see a thing, but the Daily Driver XJ6 is out and about again. As you can see, pretty dirty windscreen, but we'll do something about that. And otherwise, we got temperature working, we got good oil pressure, it's charging nicely, and overall, it just feels great being out in there again. And back home, heater is nice and toasty, except I'm just low on fuel. Everything else is going really, really well. I just can't explain how happy I am to get this thing back on the road. It's hard to explain. I've had a couple questions. People ask why I like this thing so much, because I definitely have nicer cars and more exclusive and everything. I don't know. I just really like this thing for some reason. It just fits me. I feel at home. Like now sitting here, it just feels like I've never left, even though it's been about 6 months. But I'm going to get fuel for it, continue test driving a little bit more, make sure everything's fine, and then after that, we are ready to do the school runs again. It is pretty much just ice out here, but I did a couple of braking tests, and these studded Nokian high completed tires are still amazing. This thing has such good grip. Yes, of course, if I mash the throttle, it will spin the tires, but I mean, you drive carefully, and this thing, as I've proven before, is really capable in the winter and snow. And it's just running better and better. I think more and more fresh fuel and more treatments and just running, and I think this thing should be back up. Worst case, need to go into the carbs and clean them out inside, but we'll try some of this treatment. A good friend of mine, he swears by it. He says he has had motorcycles and things that stood for years and all gummed up. All he does is, as long as he gets it started and get this thing circulating through, he says they're fine. So we gotta give that a shot. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Till next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.